All right, guys, we are live once again. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is March 24th, 2026. And before I do anything else on a jam-packed program today, I want to wish a very happy public birthday to my director, the man who loves guacamole more than any other man. He loves three things: guacamole, Lord of the Rings, and baseball. Connor, my director, who's you are literally my oldest employee by age, and also you've been with me the longest, and you're a trusty guy, and we gave you a bagel this morning, and you blew out a candle. That's in lieu of payment this week. Happy birthday. Thank you. Okay, you've subscribed, you've tapped the notification bell, all that stuff. Obviously, we were not live yesterday because we were returning from Hungary, and it was my third trip there in the last 3 years taking the team. And it's a very, very small country of less than 10 million people, but I've really come to love Hungary. I think we have a couple images from CPAC and some of the events that I did. It was really just spectacular there. You see Eva Vladingerbroek, who has become one of the most outspoken voices against immigration and for re-immigration. That's a bit from my speech at CPAC. I think maybe there's a couple more. There's some of the event and the talk that I gave. And I did meet this guy finally. Do we have it? Yeah, I met Javier Milei. So hopefully we're going to arrange for that sit down soon enough. That was kind of the personal highlight of the whole thing. And the guy's he's just, you know, when they say some people have got it and some people don't, like beyond the sideburns and the crazy hair and the big smile, there was just like this, he looked at me and it was like, rah! Like the guy is just like living his best life, fixing his country, doing a lot of good stuff. One other little piece of housekeeping before we get to the show. We have launched new merch as of this morning at daverubin.store because this is the only solution for America, guys. Make America Florida. It's not only a hat, it's also a t-shirt, and I think we have, look at that. We did it old school. You don't see many t-shirts like this these days where they're putting the images on the back, but that's the way we're doing it around here. That was designed by my guys. Make America Florida, daverubin.store. And okay, let's just dive right in. There's a lot to catch up on. Obviously, mostly Iran stuff. We're going to do a little bit of the right-wing podcaster wars. We'll do some TSA stuff, some TDS stuff, and maybe I can find some other three-letter things to throw at you. But let's start with Iran. This is Donald Trump yesterday on Truth Social. I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week, I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Okay, so there's a couple things here. First off, as many people were pointing out on the Twitter machine, who are we talking to at this point, right? Like so much of the leadership has been destroyed. The Ayatollah, Ayatollah 2, Ayatollah 7, everyone's been taken out. The military leadership is out. So it's a little unclear to the layman who exactly the administration is talking to. But let's say that there's some people there roughly in charge of the country that have some ability to negotiate. I think this is good. The war aims, and I think I've been extremely consistent on this, unlike several other podcasters in this space. The war aims already, the chunk of the front end of it, which was taking out the nuke sites, taking out the ballistic missile stuff, making sure that the leadership was decimated so it would create the conditions for the people to take their country back. That's part two. That stuff has largely been done. The rockets are slowing down. They're basically only firing to Israel anymore, and Israel's dealing with it. They're taking the hits and dealing with it, but their ballistic missile production program is 100% gone. They're randomly firing a bunch of stuff, and it's not that it can cause no chaos, but you've seen the realignment in the Middle East, where even Lebanon, as of this morning, it literally happened about 20 minutes ago, is now kicking out the Iranian ambassador. So it's like the map, as I keep saying, the map is being rhetorically redrawn and maybe literally in some sense. We'll get to that over the next couple weeks, I suppose. Part two of this will be, will the Iranian people be able to take their country back? But what Trump's saying right there is we're not stopping yet, but we won't hit any more infrastructure, meaning energy infrastructure, right? We're not trying to hurt the people. We're hurting the military. We're trying to hurt the regime, but the people will have to take their country back. So taking out power plants, et cetera, we're going to pause on that for 5 days, figure out who we're negotiating with, and go from there. So I think this has been consistently everything that Trump promised, and it's not a forever war because we're only about 25 days into it, and we might be looking at the end of the military hostilities within a week or so. Here's Trump talking about those talks a bit more.
Mr. President, Iran's foreign ministry says you're not telling the truth when it comes to productive conversations to end the war.
Well, they're going to have to get themselves better public relations people. We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement. But we've had very strong talks. Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner had them. They went, I would say, perfectly. I would say that if they carry through with that, it'll end that problem, that conflict. They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today by probably phone. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
Bombing our little hearts out. I love the other. Okay, so again, who they are is sort of the X factor in all of this. Like, do they, whoever it is that is they on the Iranian side, do they have the authority to make a deal, the power? Like, would they be able to actually, like, will they be the leaders of what a future Iran is? I don't know, but I'll trust Trump on that for now. I love at the end, it's like, and if they don't come around, we'll keep bombing, so that's fine. But again, this is classic Trump. Would it not surprise you? Would it not surprise you if in the next week, 2 weeks, this thing is basically done, that the military adventure part of it's done? Again, that puts aside part two of them having to take their country back. But even if that doesn't happen overnight or there's issues there, the idea that the number one state sponsor of terror throughout the Middle East and really the world, that it has been decapitated, that we have shown America leads again, that we can do things again, that we are not going to just sit back and let people threaten us and our allies. And for all the people that are angry at Trump, he'll have done it in about 30 days with, yes, a little bump in energy prices. We talked about last week how gas was up 35 cents a gallon. Where's gas at right now? $3.90. 3.90 cents. So it was at 3.85 last week, which was up about 35 cents a gallon. So it's up about 40 cents a gallon. That is true, and it is temporary. And they're working on keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. So militarily, this is going well. And for all the people that said this was going to be World War III, thermonuclear World War III, another forever war, and everything else, I think, like they are about most things, they are going to be very, very wrong. Here is video on Fox talking a bit about the peace talks between Trump's team and, again, whoever they is.
Talks on ending the war could be held in Islamabad as early as this week. There's also a report that Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey are passing messages between the United States negotiators, which I assume would be Jared and Steve Witkoff, and Iran's parliament speaker. What do you know about these two reports?
Yeah, we have seen these reports indicating that face-to-face talks could take place in Islamabad, Pakistan, as early as this week. We know there are messages being sent behind the scenes. I've talked with a number of regional sources who confirmed this to Fox News. The question here is why now, and if the Iranians are willing to make good faith concessions.
It's very important to note because there's so many people on the right in this hyper-libertarian Tucker wing, which we'll talk about in a minute, that are so fixated on the ending forever wars, which is what Trump always said. So Trump's been so consistent here because he said he was going to end forever wars. Remember, we're 3 weeks into this war and we're already talking about a ceasefire. Think how profoundly different that is than, say, the Iraq War, which went on for basically a decade, or the Afghanistan War that quite literally was the longest war in US history, and nobody even understood why we were there in the first place. So Trump, 3 weeks into this, is already talking about ending it, in that we've accomplished the military part of this, end the ballistic missiles, end the nuke program, decapitate the regime. That's the military part. We've done it, and now there will be talks in Pakistan, which I don't know, seems kind of funny to me, like that somehow they got involved in this thing. But I thought this was interesting from Polymarket. US and Iran ceasefire, 14% are saying by March 31st, that's a week from now. 33% are saying by mid-April, April 15th, and by the end of April, 44%. So people on the ground and those who put money on these things, I've never put money on a war before. I just old school. But in any event, that's what the markets are saying. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, was on CNN, also pointing out that everyone has been going crazy about the Strait of Hormuz, but that will be over soon too.
The market is not assuming it's going to take 6 months to clean up this Hormuz problem. Everybody hates war, obviously, but we're now, if you look globally at what the assumption is, right now, still, the assumption is it's going to get cleaned up in the next 30 days. And so everybody's speculating. Nobody knows with certainty. And there's certainly, the Iranians have been more tenacious than many people thought. I'm getting my read every day from my office in Abu Dhabi. Today was a good day, actually. One of the days with very few drones. So we'll see if tomorrow's like that. And I assume if I got 3 days in a row with very few drones above Abu Dhabi, that would tell me they've run out of stuff to shoot.
Okay, so that's particularly interesting. I was making a couple notes there because, look, there's the military part that's a success, right? No Air Force anymore, no Navy, right? They're just randomly shooting things. They're running out of things, as he points to. But then the reason I want to show you that clip is there's also value in showing clips of people who monitor the market, and he is a master of that. And the market, the people who are tracking the market have to stay a little bit ahead of things. So he's talking to his office over there going, what's going on? Do we think that Hormuz will be a mess or not? And he's saying it basically should be okay. And I think it's important, it's important not to just track the military successes, but what do people in business, people who are running multinational corporations, or in this case, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, what do they think will happen with all of this? And here is Jensen Huang talking about what the Middle East will look like after this war, which now appears to be ending probably in the next couple of weeks.
I was also asked, given what's happening in the Middle East, is that an area where we believe that we can expand artificial intelligence to? I believe that there's a reason we went to war, and I believe at the end of the war, Middle East will be more stable than before. And so if we were there, if we're considering it before, we should absolutely be considering it after. And so I'm 100% in on that.
So I love that. I love that. You have calmer heads saying when this thing is done, there will be incredible opportunity in the Middle East. Think about it. If you're someone like Jensen Huang, so we're in this AI, we're just jumping into the next phase of the internet, right? We had 20 years of apps and social media, and now we're jumping into the AI and robotics phase. It's about to start. And the amount of computing power, the amount of infrastructure you will have to build, server farms and all of those things, they're being built all over the world. If you were a giant company like NVIDIA, you might be less inclined to do that in the Middle East because rockets go off every now and again. However, if Iran has now been decapitated and they are not, say, funding Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is firing rockets all over the place, and if the Houthis are out, and if you have suddenly, at the end of this, which is what I think is going to happen, mark my words, in a couple weeks, if you suddenly get new peace deals in the Middle East and countries are suddenly trading with each other and commerce is going around the Middle East and everyone starts realizing, all right, little Israel isn't the enemy here. As a matter of fact, look what happened during the war. It was America and Israel defending us. Well, then suddenly, as this AI revolution comes, all of these countries could get the benefits of that, right? Because they could get the benefits of, many of them have an awful lot of land, they have an awful lot of oil, and they might be able to start building server farms and lead in the AI, in the march to AI. I thought this was rather funny. I think we are going to play the intro for this one, even though I'm being careful with the words lately. We're going to play the Scott Jennings CNN intro. He talked about the situation as to whether the Ayatollahs, do you think they would have preferred Obama or Trump? He's talking to one of these generic CNN people.
Do you think that the Ayatollah prefers his life under Obama or under Trump?
Look,
probably Obama, yes?
The Ayatollah's dead.
There you go.
The question is,
you heard it here
here's
first.
the thing. I think the real question is,
I care about American. I care about American quality of life. In terms of quality of life, Scott cares about the Ayatollah.
Enough shouting.
All right, so I actually don't, that loser, his name's Miles something. I don't really care about him, but the look, right, deer in headlights, like, because he knows the answer. Obvious. Well, first off, the Ayatollah is dead. He is right about that. But then he pretends that what he's saying is, oh, I care about Americans. Do you know why we decapitated, quite literally decapitated, I'm pretty sure his head was knocked off, the Ayatollah, and then took out the son, the gay son, and then we took out all the rest of them? It was because every day in their parliament they chant death to America, because they were funding terrorists all over the world, because they funded Hamas, which killed 46 Americans, even if you don't care about the 1,400 Israelis. Like, that was what was American about this. That was what was pro-American, and as you guys know, wildly consistent with everything that Donald Trump has said for 40 plus years about Iran. Thought this was good. We'll jump over to, it is Monday, so we'll jump over to Monday's. It's not Monday. We didn't tape yesterday, and thus I cannot get a 9-8 on Connor's birthday. Now the best I can do for the rest of the show is a 9-4. Sorry, brother. Nonetheless, on Friday's episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, who I've enjoyed talking to many times, here she talks about why Trump's Iran strike decision was the right one, and you might find Maher's response rather interesting.
If you know that you're going to get hit, and if you know that you are going to have people die, ultimately that's a decision that I would never want to have to be in that decision, in that position as the president. But what I will tell you is I would rather be on the right side and be able to control the outcome of something that I know is going to happen regardless. And I think that this gets into a bigger...
I have to agree.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. There you have Anna Paulina Luna, who is absolutely like center bullseye, MAGA, fully backing Trump on this, repeating really what Rubio and Hegseth and Trump have said, which is that there was always this issue. Everyone keeps hanging up on this word imminent threat. And the question is, do you attack someone when the threat is imminent, meaning they're about to attack you and they've done all of the things necessary to make sure that it's going to be very hard to harm them? Or do you get them by surprise before that? Well, any military analyst or strategist would have a very obvious answer for you, but explaining that to some of the dullards on the internet can be rather difficult. But it was nice, I think, right there to see that you have someone firmly in Camp MAGA, and then you have Bill Maher, who obviously is sane and does not have Trump derangement syndrome, but also agreeing, like, take out the people who are spreading terror and a terrible ideology throughout the world, and then maybe, dare I quote John Lennon for that horrible song, but give peace a chance? Like, I think it might be possible. But now let's continue with a bit more from Maher's show, because he got into it about what people are calling the podcast wars or the podcast grifters. And of course, this is Tucker Carlson, and this is what, unfortunately, I now have to include Megyn Kelly in, and several others, people who have decided to put ideology over truth, who are pushing lies. And it's, yeah, you guys know my feelings about this. I don't like doing this that much, but I think it's important right now. You know, 10 years ago, or so, when I was on the left, and I was one of the first, like, what made my career, it was that I was a progressive on the Young Turks. I was a lefty, total lefty. I was a Bernie supporter. There are literally videos of me in 2016 supporting Bernie. May God have mercy on my soul. But as I started waking up, I started speaking about how the left was not being liberal. And there was basically about 10 people online, I kid you not, about 10 people online who were willing to say that. And unfortunately, the liberals did not know how to stand up against the wackadoodle progressives. The reason I think it's important to address these podcast wars, even though it's personal for me and it's kind of grotesque in a certain way because I know how the sausage is made behind the scenes, is that as there has been this fight on the right, it's been wonderful to see in a weird way because we are seeing good, decent, principled conservatives, it's not even conservatives, decent Americans stand up to the liars and the grifters and the crazy click-chasing buffoons. There we go. So here's Maher on what's been happening on the right in Podcastistan.
And now the big answer is, no, Israel made us do it. We're Israel's bitch. I don't think we're Israel's bitch. I think we're Israel's ally. But, you know, if I have to be on one side of this MAGA thing, either Trump or Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes, I'll be with Trump on this one. Because that's the other side of MAGA.
Look at Paul Begala. He's just such a nothing. He's like, oh God, which way are you applauding? Then I'll decide whether I'm going to smile. Now, Anna Paulina Luna, I think she made it clear which side she's on by saying that she understands why Trump did what he did. But that's Maher being right? Like Maher, I want you to think about this for a second. Bill Maher, 20 years ago, how many HBO specials has Bill Maher done? I'm going to guess about 10. Joseph, can we check that number in just a sec? If you watch his HBO specials, especially in the early 2000s during the Iraq War and some of those things, he's radically anti-war. Now, he does talk about Islamic extremism from a liberal perspective. He doesn't want women put in beekeeper costumes, as he points out. But this is a guy who has been against war. But it doesn't mean that now, that having that position supersedes logic all the time when there are people who are saying they are coming to kill you. Or, for example, as we found out over the weekend, they suddenly actually have had ballistic missiles that shoot way further than we thought. Bill Maher's done 13 HBO specials. That is incredible. Anyway, so let's connect this to what, unfortunately, a guy who I'm really tired of talking about and soon enough, hopefully won't have to talk about him anymore once he's institutionalized. But Tucker Carlson, here he is explaining that Muslim extremism is caused by colonial powers.
And you notice, like in ISIS or Al Qaeda or like the Muslim extremists, they're all from like collapsed, pathetic societies dominated by colonial powers. They've been degraded, and that's why they're so angry. Right? So there's something about being degraded that turns you into a violent nutcase extremist. You're seeing a lot of violent nutcase extremists in our country. Not surprising, because the country's being degraded.
You know, it's so interesting. He really is a leftist more than anything else. It proves the horseshoe theory of politics. Look, it doesn't mean that America has done everything right all the time. Barack Obama turned Libya, which had Muammar Gaddafi, he turned it into a failed state. That's true. Iraq, did we do everything perfectly? No. But when we left, was it turning the right way, and were they having free and fair elections and had a lot of the sectarian violence stopped? Yes. What happened after that? Well, Barack Obama, as I pointed out last week, Barack Obama, when he won that primary against Hillary Clinton, it was basically because he kept saying, end the war now, and Hillary kept saying, well, we're trying to get out, but we want to do it responsibly. And what Obama said rung with the base more, and then we left Iraq, and now Iraq basically is a failed state. So there's some essence of truth in some sense, right? Like when there are problems, you don't have to think about the Middle East. When there are general problems, if you live in a place with lots of problems, it's going to make you a little crazier and your behavior might be a little different. That is true. But there are Muslims killing Muslims all over Syria and all over Iraq. And there are Muslims oppressing Persians in Iran. And there are quite literally, you could take the Uyghurs, the Muslim Uyghurs who are in China being killed by the Chinese. Like, we could do many, many versions of this that have nothing to do with America. What he also doesn't want to address, of course, is that in Islam, the word Islam means to submit, it is not particularly fond of Christians and Jews and non-believers and gays, no matter what the gays for Palestine say or anything else. But if he really thinks that it's basically our responsibility, it's not a responsibility, it's our fault. What he's saying is it's the fault of the West. You guys went here and did all sorts of things. We also basically, the British built India, turned it into something that now has become something directionally towards a Western nation. Doesn't mean everything that they did was right throughout all of that. But if you think that this all started because of our imperialism, his implication is somehow it's around World War II, right? Well, how about listening to this quote from Winston Churchill, who, by the way, was a good guy in World War II. In 1899, he wrote a book called River War, and he wrote this: "The influence of the religion Islam paralyzes the social development of those who follow it. No stronger retrograde force exists in the world." That was in 1899, about 35 years before World War II, before post-World War II, where the maps were redrawn or anything else. And I would also say that this is, unfortunately, what people call the soft bigotry of low expectations, that you think these people can't control themselves. They just can't control themselves, and everything is our fault. So what he's selling you right there is exactly what the left has been selling us in America forever, right? When terrorists do things, it has nothing to do with their ideology. It has nothing to do with the book that they say they're doing it for or the shirt that they're wearing when they do it. It has everything to do with America and Western values. It's just nonsense, and it's dangerous. It's deeply dangerous. So tell me this. We saw this video over the weekend. I thought this was interesting. Here's an imam in Michigan. And I want you to very carefully listen to his words, and you tell me, is this because of America or because of something else?
And that lack of fear of death is what has always given us power over them. I remember years ago, Ronald Reagan, a situation where somebody had jumped into a vehicle, I think it was in Africa, and they ran the vehicle into this huge building and blew it up and killed a whole bunch of people. And they came to Ronald Reagan to ask him about that. And he said, and I'm not a good imitator, he said, well, how in the world do you expect to stop a man who is sitting in a truck full of explosives and he's running into a building saying, God is great? I mean, he couldn't understand that. It's when you reach that level where your love of this world is replaced by the love of the hereafter. And therefore, the removal of the fear of death is no longer there. You got the edge. The Waldheim is taken. The softness is taken. All these things are important.
Do you realize how dangerous what that guy just said there? He's applauding the suicide bomber because he has no fear. That's kind of interesting. He's saying his love of that other world is way more important than this world. So he'll blow himself and as many people as he needs to, he'll blow them up to get to the other world. And he literally says their lack of fear of death gives them power. Now, is that notion because of the United States of America or because of imperial British policy in the 1940s? Or is there something else going on here? And why it is that Tucker seems to be intentionally confusing people about this, I do not know. But the next version of all of this is that they are going to call all of us Islamophobes. Now, a phobia is an irrational fear. I would say that it's perfectly rational to fear or not like an ideology, a political ideology, which is really what it is, that might subjugate you or subjugate women or minorities or want to take out Christians or Jews or force everyone to pay a jizya, a tax to live in a place that is under their control, et cetera, et cetera. But here is communist/Islamist mayor of New York City talking about Islamophobia.
I think anyone who grew up post 9/11 knows that anti-Muslim bigotry isn't anything new here. But to you, does it seem like there's something different or something new this time?
I think there's an unabashed nature to it, and it is being echoed from the highest offices in this country. They do so without any sense of shame. And what is remarkable about Islamophobia and anti-Muslim bigotry is not that it is bigoted, for there is so much bigotry in this country. It is that there are very few who speak up in opposition to it, the manner in which it has become normalized. And it is not exclusive to any one political party. It is endemic, frankly, to our politics. And what this kind of bigotry shows is a complete erasure of the million or so Muslims who call this city home.
So evil what he's doing. Everything he's doing is a complete obfuscation of the truth. I was in New York during 9/11. My father saw the second plane hit from his office. My grandmother lived in New York. I had friends that lived in the suburb that couldn't even get out of the city, that stayed with us for a few days. I've told you some of those stories before and written about them. The idea that there was somehow anti-Muslim bigotry after 9/11, that the question, whoever that interviewer is, everyone knows that there was, is complete 100% lie. Everyone, it was America. Everyone was bending over backwards to make sure to say not all Muslims and not be bigoted against people and everything else. It's a complete lie, but he wants you to think that they're the victims as they take over Times Square and thousands of them pray, and as they start using the Muslim call to prayer in Brooklyn and things like that. They're also the victims. It is deeply, deeply dangerous. Also, do we have some numbers on hate crimes? Yeah, we have some numbers.
Anti-Semitic hate crimes outnumber anti-Muslim 10 to 1.
And so right now, yeah, in the last 20 years, we just checked on this, and you can fact check us if you'd like. In the last 20 years, anti-Jewish hate crimes outpace anti-Muslim hate crimes 10 to 1. Not 2 to 1, not 3 to 1, not 4 to 1. By the way, as a Jewish person, I don't take any pride or happiness in that. I would prefer it not be there for anyone. But he wants you to think that he and his people are the real victims. It's completely absurd. Steve Deace, who I haven't had on the show in a long time, we could have him back on. He is a host over at the Blaze with Glenn Beck, and he's been one of the, I would say, more lucid critics of Tucker as he's sort of gone off the rails in the last 6 months. And I thought this was quite interesting, and it's a point that I brought up, I think, about a month ago. He tweeted this: how many times has Tucker Carlson posted about or in support of the Save America Act, or on any of his shows? Tucker Carlson has not posted about or in support of the Save America Act on X based on extensive searches of his account. Searches using exact phrases like Save America Act, Save America Act, Save America Act, or variations, including from his handle in 2020, return zero matching posts from him. Semantic searches limited to his username for relative content, for example, mentions of supporting the act, election integrity bills tied to it, or related discussions also yielded no direct references. His recent posts focus on other things like foreign policy, free speech, wars, and interviews, but nothing on this legislation. There are no indications from web searches, including Fox News Archives, his own site, or related coverage, that Tucker Carlson has discussed or endorsed the Save America Act on any of his shows, for example, his podcast, former Fox program, or current platforms. The bill, a Trump-backed Senate measure requiring proof of citizenship for voting, voter ID elements, and other election reforms, has been heavily covered in recent days with Senate debates, Trump pressure, and GOP infighting, but Tucker is not mentioned in connection to it. Look, I don't love this podcast war stuff, but I think it's really important, and I'm seeing suddenly people are getting more, we don't need this up here anymore. I'm seeing more people get a little more discerning in who they're watching. You don't have to agree with me on foreign policy. I could be wrong about things. I'm telling you what I think, that's fine, right? And you should judge me on my track record and whether you think I'm honest and all of those things. But why would you, if you are someone that's roughly on the right, you're a disaffected lib, you're a hardcore conservative, whatever, why would you be backing somebody who not only is radically against Trump right before these midterms, where the whole freaking thing could come crashing down, and always is criticizing him and quite literally never talks about any of the legislation Trump is trying to get across the finish line that could potentially, and not ironically, save, it's the SAVE Act, save the country. Like if you're watching people on the right that never say anything good about the Republicans, never say anything good about Donald Trump, maybe they're not really on your side and they're tricking you, and they're also somehow propping up Islam, and they're also doing glazing interviews of all of the lefties that they bring on, but when they bring on Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee, they try to destroy them. Maybe there's something else going on there. Now, a guy who I think has been wildly consistent on all of this stuff is Mark Levin, and Mark Levin had Joe Kent on. Now, as you know, Joe Kent, who is under Tulsi Gabbard at DNI, he stepped down last week in what he said was opposition to the Iran war. We showed you that for years he's been completely aligned with Trump on Iran and for military action in Iran. And there are many tweets about it, many public statements about it, and everything else. So he's had a very, very recent switch, and you can glean into that whatever you may. And it also turns out that apparently he has not been invited for the last few months. He was not being invited to certain meetings because many people thought he was leaking to the media. Mark Levin interviewed Joe Kent on the radio and asked him about that.
Were you a leaker? Are you under investigation? Do you know whether you're under investigation? Let's try and clear the air right at the beginning.
Sure, Mark. Thanks for having me on. I never leaked any classified information. And the stories you're reading are stories from leakers who are leaking, I guess, maybe an investigation about me being a leaker. So I think it's just a media counter narrative. I had
so nobody has contacted you from Justice or the FBI or anything like that?
Nope.
Did you ever leak? Confidential?
Nope,
Let me do it this way. Did you ever leak classified information? You said no. Did you ever leak confidential information?
Nope.
Never.
Never.
Were you cut out? Okay, you're on the record. That's perfectly fine. And that's a good thing, Joe.
Okay, so there Kent is on the record that he never leaked classified information. Now that's interesting, and we don't have information counter to that other than it is known for sure that he was being left out of meetings because people thought he was leaking classified information. But he's saying he never leaked classified information. Now what's interesting about that, particularly, is that you may remember, what was it, last week, I had Andrew Colvett on. Andrew Colvett was Charlie Kirk's executive producer and right-hand man for many, many years. And Andrew, over the weekend has now said, for some reason he didn't say this for the last 8 months, but he did say it over the weekend, that he gave Joe Kent, who he was told he could trust, screenshots from a private group chat that Charlie was in. And those screenshots eventually made their way to Candace Owens. Now, did Joe Kent, who he gave them to, that's what Andrew Colvett is saying, did he give them to Candace directly? Did he give them to someone else? Now screenshots in a private group chat are not classified, but that is showing that at least this guy, we should be looking at him with a bit of a skeptical eye. Here is a bit more. Levin going after Kent because he keeps arguing that Levin himself and others lobbied Trump to strike Iran.
President Trump said no nuclear weapons. And then through official engagements through the Israelis and then also the media echo chamber that wanted regime change in Iran said, no, we need to say that the Iranians can't.
What about the media echo chamber, your buddies who didn't want regime change in Iran? There's a lot of echo chambers out there, wouldn't you say?
It appears that your media echo chamber was much more successful.
No, it wasn't. I never lobbied the president. Hey, pay attention to me. I never lobbied the president. You guys keep putting that crap out there. I met with the president once at his request, and I said to the president, ready for this, Joe? I said, they're saying out there that I'm lobbying you. You know what he did? He laughed. You know what he said? Mark, I know where you stand. I watch your show on Saturday and Sunday. Anything I say here, pay attention. Anything I say here is what I would say. I did what?
You can lobby him by using the power of your show, the power of your
platform. Come on, brother. You're sounding almost ridiculous now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's really pathetic on Kent's part. Everyone can say whatever they want. I can say whatever I want. Mark Levin can say whatever he wants. Joe Kent can clearly say whatever he wants. Now he's not working for the government, and it sounds like he was doing some shady things when he was there. Everyone can say what they want. Trump makes the decisions that Trump wants to make, right? So it's actually somewhat grotesque. This notion, they keep pushing this, that Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, that's what Joe Kent and Tucker Carlson and several other of these people, they want you to think that Donald Trump doesn't make the decisions. And it is just absolutely mind-blowing to me that after over 10 years of this with Donald Trump, people think he doesn't know what he's doing, that he listens to people, absolutely. Does he watch TV? Does he watch Fox and other mainstream media? Obviously. But that he's not making these decisions. I mean, even if you just listen to the tenor there, it's obvious that Levin is telling the truth, right? It's obvious. And Kent is being a little wishy-washy. Okay, maybe you didn't leak classified information. You're now on the record as saying it. We'll find out if that's true. But at the very least, Colvett said he gave you the texts that somehow ended up in Candace's hands. So we'll see about that. Anyway, here's Trump, and he's kind of had it with Kent.
Do you know whether Joe Kent was leaking?
Look, I'm not a fan of the guy. If you look at, and you never cover this, if you look at his truths or whatever he went on, if it's X or truth, if you look at his truths or his statements, He was all for everything. All of a sudden, he wasn't. He was a man that I met at Dover. He came and his wife was killed. He remarried fairly quickly. His wife was killed, and I felt badly for him. He ran for Congress, he lost. He ran for Congress again, and he lost. I said, you know, he's a guy, nice guy, seemed like a very nice guy. I met him, he was pretty heartbroken, but I said, you know, it's a shame. He ran for Congress twice. Call him up, give him a job in the White House. Smart. They gave him a job in the White House, and this is what he does to me. You know, being a nice guy doesn't pay off too much.
Well, you're probably right about that. Look, the broader point here is let's say you have let's try to give Ken, if I gave him every bit of leeway as possible, let's say you were just putting aside leaks or anything else. Let's say his position, even though he has for years been encouraging Trump to hit Iran and talking about all the horrible things that Iran's done and everything else, put aside that he flip-flopped on all of that just in the last little bit. What kind of person works for the administration? Let's put aside the leaks for a second. Put all that away. What kind of person works for an administration that you are welcomed into? You work there for a year under Tulsi Gabbard, who is your friend. Remember, I told you the only time I met Joe Kent, we had about a half-hour conversation, just the two of us. It was the evening of Tulsi Gabbard swearing in. There was a little dinner party after that we were both at, and he was at the bar when I got there early. We had a drink and had a perfectly nice chat. You're kind of throwing Tulsi under the bus, aren't you? By immediately, the day after you step down, you're going on all of these shows to imply Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Like that's the giveaway. That's the giveaway. Like if somebody was working for me, talking to you three, somebody was working for me, steps down, and the next day starts going on the media to attack me, wouldn't that kind of tell you something weird was going on here, right? And Donald Trump is the one being wildly consistent. And Mark Levin is the one that's pointing out that people talk to President Trump about everything, lobbying. Like, it's funny, the word lobbying. It's like people talk to Trump. Trump watches media. Trump makes decisions for himself. These people seem to think that after all this time, Donald Trump has no idea what he's doing. It's the absolute height of absurdity. But let's stop with that because now I want to come back to some of the more granular domestic stuff. And there has been another murder of a beautiful young girl here in America. You can really call this one Laken Riley 2.0. It happened in Chicago. Surprise, surprise. It was a Venezuelan illegal immigrant. Surprise, surprise. And the Democrats are going to say absolutely nothing about this. So I think it's valuable and important that we talk about it so you know about it. This is from Bill Belusian on Fox. Breaking, DHS confirms that the suspect in custody for murdering Loyola University student Sheridan Gorman in Chicago is a Venezuelan illegal alien who was caught and released at the border by the Biden administration in May 2023. DHS says he was also released from local custody after a shoplifting arrest in the sanctuary city of Chicago on June 19th, 2023. DHS identifies the suspect as Venezuelan national Jose Medina Medina. Medina is accused of approaching Gorman while she was walking in a park with friends early Thursday morning. DHS says Medina came up to her while wearing a mask and armed with a gun. As she attempted to flee, he fired his gun and shot her. Gorman was shot and pronounced dead at the scene. DHS statement: Sheridan Gorman had her whole life ahead of her before this cold-blooded killer decided to end her life. She was failed by open border policies and sanctuary politicians who released this illegal alien twice before he went on to commit this heinous murder, said Acting Assistant Secretary Lauren Biss. We are calling on Governor Pritzker and Chicago's sanctuary politicians to commit to not releasing this criminal illegal alien from jail back into American neighborhoods. I mean, for God's sakes, that would be the lowest thing you could possibly do. Let's not release this guy. He just murdered a college student in cold blood. Democrats will not say a word about this. They do not care. I do not mean that to be hyperbolic or over the top or anything else. Democrats do not care. It was Biden or AutoPen that let this guy in. Then he gets to Chicago where he commits other crimes and he gets let out again. And then who pays for it? Well, it's a beautiful young college student from Loyola. right? She's dead. The Democrats will not care. And then they will tell you that the Republicans are evil for trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. Here's a bit more from Illusion. This appears to be Lake and Riley 2.0. Yet another Venezuelan illegal alien allowed into the country by the Biden administration, then released again by a sanctuary jurisdiction on a shoplifting arrest, now accused of murdering an innocent young American college student. Absolutely insane. Here's Fox with a bit more on this guy's repeated arrests and how he was let out. Just profoundly absurd.
This is Sheridan Gorman, 18 years old. She was a freshman at Loyola in Chicago, starting her whole life, her college career, out for a walk with friends by the lake. And it is the same lakefront that Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker touted as very safe and said everyone was making too big of a deal out of crime in Chicago back in September.
Here on the south side, early morning, lots of runners coming by on the lakefront path, lakefront trail. Absolutely gorgeous.
Oh yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Well, she's dead, and it's because you created a sanctuary state. Chicago became a sanctuary city, and we had a president who wasn't even president who let all these people in. I have Joseph doing what we call a side quest around here, which is checking top Democrat Twitter accounts to see if anyone has tweeted about her. Let's do Bernie, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, pick 10 Dems, and we'll just see if anyone has said a word about it. And the obvious answer is no. You know what? We got bagels for Connor this morning. I will eat 3 bagels in succession at the end of this program if any of those Democrats in their last 10 tweets have said a word about her. I'm making light of this, but it's profoundly evil what they're doing. How evil is it? Well, we were all talking about how this was going to happen while they were doing this. Here's Alejandro Mayorkas with his eyebrows talking about how secure the border was in 2023.
I know you are asking for a yes or no answer, and the fact of the matter is that the challenges at the border are very complex and dynamic.
All right, well, I'm going to take from that if you can't answer yes, then the answer is no.
That is not true.
All right, so then you're saying all 9 are secure.
It is my testimony that the border is secure, and we are working every day, day and night, to increase its security. The challenges that we are experiencing at the border cannot be overstated.
Guys, I got to tell you, that's no less evil. Watching those old videos, it's no less evil than when we watch, COVID videos. And if you get the vaccine, you won't get nor transmit COVID. Lies. They lied about everything. How is it that we got all these things right while the people who are supposedly in charge got so much wrong? He's going through as many Twitter accounts as he can right now, and it looks like I will not. How many calories are in a bagel? I already knocked out 1 this morning. You got to look at a good 450 over there. If I knocked out 3 more, I mean, that's going to ruin the day. The other part of all of this is that the Democrats, what do I always tell you? If there's a bad guy, they love him. And if there's a good guy, they hate him. And this is a perfect illustration of that. This is Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy. This guy is an extraordinary tool. He went on the Muppet Show over on MS Now with Chris Hayes, and I'm always curious whose hand is up his butt. And here he is, Murphy, saying the quiet part out loud.
The negotiation didn't have a path to citizenship. It was entirely on their terms in order to get Ukraine funding, right?
Well, I mean, Chris, that's been a failed play for 20 years. So you are right that has been the Democratic strategy for 30 years, maybe. And it has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans that are in this country.
Did he just say the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans? Well, if you're undocumented, you're not American. But I couldn't have heard that right. Could you?
The negotiation didn't have a path to citizenship.
And it has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans that are in this country.
When you talk about Orwellian, the undocumented Americans who are in this country, you mean illegal aliens who have broken the law by coming to this country. And those are the people you care about the most, which is why I have no doubt, and I will eat the 3 bagels if I am wrong. Can you check Chris Murphy's account? And has he tweeted about that young girl from Loyola? Obviously not. If you think Cali's a crap hole under Gavin Newsom, the next guy that could be governor there is a man who quite literally had sex with a Chinese spy named Fang Fang. Check it for yourself. He farted on national television with Chris Matthews. And he's just all around just douchey. He's just a douchebag. Like, can we show a picture of a douchebag or we'd be demonetized? I'm not even sure what a douchebag is, but he seems to be a douchebag. I don't even want to know what a douchebag is. Does anyone know what a douchebag? I don't think no one in this room knows what you know what one is? All right, you tell me after. But the point is, here's a douchebag.
Americans don't want ICE in our communities. They don't want them at our airports. They, by and large, as I support, want ICE to be abolished. They are not doing what we were promised they would do.
All right, that is not, I am sure that's not what a douchebag is, what he just said right there. I didn't even watch the clip. Should we throw it again? I mean, I know what it is, but maybe let's watch the clip. But that is definitely, you are not right about that.
Americans don't want ICE in our communities. They don't want them at our airports. They, by and large, as I support, want ICE to be abolished. They are not doing what we were promised they would do.
All right, the point is, whatever a douchebag is, that's it right there, right? Like, he's a liar. He's a liar. Yes, this is what we want ICE to do. They're doing what Donald Trump was elected to have them do. And because you dingbats have defunded DHS, Donald Trump has now been sending ICE to deal with airport security lines, which they shouldn't have to do, but he's doing something because, as we keep pointing out, ICE is funded through 2029. So you morons that have the government in partial shutdown right now, it's for no other reason than you are trying to exert maximum pain on citizens so that they hopefully will mistakenly attack Donald Trump over it. And I just know that was wrong. My friend Sage Steele, she was on our Actual Friends podcast while I was away in Hungary, and here she talks about how the Democrats have these big cities. We know this. All the big cities are blue, and what it is doing, not only because of the illegal situation, but the crime and the economics and everything else, what are they doing to the black people who they purport also to care about?
My husband and I were talking about this today, just in general with cities, and we were just in DC, and some friends last night who were like, I've been here for 10 years and I cannot wait to get out, even though DC's gotten better once they let Trump help with crime. What a concept, right? But when you look at every single big city, and they're blue. The leaders, it's all blue. And this is not new, whether it's the drug use, the homelessness, the crime, Chicago, south side of Chicago. That is obviously the common denominator. And I hate that, right? I hate to be like blue, red, blue, red.
Me too. He's a sane person living in a pragmatic world and doing what anyone would do.
Point. So that's my point. Is it's so rare, and I don't care red, blue. Just do your job, do it the right way. But the numbers forever, and we've talked about this from obviously a racial perspective as well, and in the black community and all these cities and inner cities that have voted blue for the last 50, 60 years. What has happened to the black communities in those towns? Good. Has it gotten an ounce better? Absolutely not.
Right. So you might think it's a jump. We're talking about immigration, and then she's talking obviously about the black community in these big cities, but it's the same thing. Democrats pretend to do good while they do bad. Look what's happening in New York City now as the communist Islamist is taxing the hell out of people. More of them are leaving, and thus they will need more money from, first they want the billionaires' money, then the millionaires' money, and then you make a couple $100,000, which isn't an awful lot of money in New York City, and they're going to want your money too, and the services will get worse and everything else. Contrast that to a place like Florida, where we have no income tax, and yet somehow we have safe roads. We coordinate with ICE, so if a Florida state trooper finds a guy going down Alligator Alley and he's speeding and it turns out that guy is illegal, guess what? Instead of escorting him to his next stop, they're going to escort him to Alligator Alcatraz. That's what we do. So what is so much of this about? Well, in the end, you can whittle it all down to Trump derangement syndrome, and I really believe that is fundamentally true. Here is Tom Homan with Sean Hannity.
They hate Trump more than they love their communities. They hate Trump more than they take the safety and security of our communities. Look, it's just another one. And I've been fighting sanctuary cities for 10 years. I have met hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children because their children were killed by an illegal alien. And I can't tell you how many young women just in the past couple of years would be alive today. Whether it's Rachel Morin or whether it's, Laken Riley, whether it's just young lady. If they would simply just work with ICE, if their law enforcement would work with ICE when they arrest illegal aliens for crimes, we could save countless lives in this country.
It really is just crazy, because if you think in this, we just read you the statement. But in this case specifically, it wasn't just, he didn't just get here illegally and then randomly murder her. He got here illegally and then also had already been arrested for another crime beyond being illegal here in the first place. And that douchebag, Swalwell, will have you believe that Americans are more concerned with illegal immigrants and criminals than they are with that young girl. And the media will keep running with that, and they will keep telling you that Tom Homan and Donald Trump and me and you are the bad guys, and it's completely absurd. Now, one of the good guys that we have, he happens to be a Republican, is National Treasure Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. So as you know, DHS is now in a partial shutdown. So TSA people are not being paid. And you've probably all seen the videos over the weekend. There were massive, massive lines in a lot of different airports. Donald Trump has decided to send ICE in to clean some of that up and do some of the checks. Democrats are going crazy because of that. But it is interesting that the Democrats are allowed to make sure that TSA folks and DHS folks don't get paid while they continue being paid. Well, Kennedy was not having it.
As far as I'm concerned, if the TSA folks are not being paid, senators shouldn't be paid. I tried to bring a bill yesterday on the floor and got objected to by the Democrats, but we'll try again.
Now that's something, that's a true politician, not a true politician, that's a good man. I will not be paid if the people that I am elected to govern over are not being paid because of what we are doing. That's pretty good. But instead, the Democrats won't even vote on that because they want to shut the government down, exert as much pain on the American people, again, hoping that the American people will point that at Trump because they're confused about what's really going on here, and they'll cash in their checks the absolute entire time. Here's some of the, here's some CNN video of the massive lines. This is at Atlanta Airport. And once again, this is because of the Democrat DHS shutdown.
We believe right now at the regular checkpoint, there's about 6 agents who are working the lines up front. So that's helping move things through. The TSA pre-check line is actually longer than the main checkpoint line. And I'm walking you this direction because I want everyone to see the active lines here at the airport, because that's when you get a good sense about how the security lines are working. We've actually tracked at least 7 people today who've given us a different estimate for the time they spent, anywhere from 4 hours to 2 hours. And that's mostly the pre-check group.
Okay, now the reason I want to show you that video is because if you look at all those people there, let's assume that a huge swath of them are not particularly political, right? Maybe they watch a little CNN, maybe they don't really pay attention to anything, maybe they listen to a podcast here and there. But most of them that are now late for vacation, going to miss a connecting flight, maybe they're not going to get home for their kids' graduation, or they're not going to make their spring break boat, or whatever it might be. For someone that's completely apolitical, you're on that line, all this is going down, and people are like, yeah, there's a government shutdown, there's a government shutdown. Well, a huge amount of people are just going to be like, oh, that's Trump's fault. They think President, right? President Trump, government, and they will blame him. So that is, I'm telling you, that is what the Democrat calculation is here. They know it's on them, but they are hoping to extract pain so that your anger will be directed towards the president. It is deeply duplicitous, but that's absolutely what they are doing. And here's Timu Obama basically saying it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Republicans have decided that they would rather force TSA agents to work without pay, inconvenience millions of Americans all across the country, and now potentially expose them to untrained ICE agents and create chaos at airports throughout the land rather than get ICE agents under control.
All right, you guys know I don't like Dana Bash. There is something about her that is so fake and robotic and whatever. She's, you know, she has the same thing that the other one has, that Abby Phillip has. There's just nothing behind. Give me a screenshot of her. There's just nothing behind her eyes. It's like, is she like, what are these people?
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But why, Dana? Why not say there? Why not say, excuse me, Timu Obama. Thank you for that speech. But as you know, ICE is funded through 2029, so the Democrats shutting down the government right now does nothing except cause pain for people. Why don't you say that? Why do you just stare like a deer in headlights as he lies to you? Try a little harder, lady. They don't expect, it's CNN, they're not expecting much out of you, but you gotta fake it a little bit, I would imagine. Here is a video of a guy, congressman, a Democrat in Colorado. His name is Jason Crow, also blaming Republicans. Complete and utter nonsense.
But as a Democrat, I mean, look at Denver Airport near your district. They're asking people to donate gift cards for TSA agents to make ends meet. The airport says, this is a huge generator in terms of what the airport does for the region. This is hurting your community.
So we are ready to go. They are in control of every facet of government.
Are left stuck. We're about to be in spring break, heavy traffic season.
They are in control of every element of government. They're in control of what we vote for and don't vote for. We are saying, let's open it back up.
No, that's not what you're saying. You're saying we'll open it back up if somehow ICE is gone. That's what all of you are saying. The lady who scares children at night and the Islamist and the other one, that's what you're all saying. So it's just a lie. That's all they do. Here's Tom Homan again, with Dana Bash, and just note the nothingness behind her eyes. And he makes the point that ICE, which we're now sending in to do the job that TSA should be doing because of the Democrats, should focus on airports where there are the biggest problems right now.
And how many ICE agents are you considering deploying to do this?
Again, that's going based on discussions we're having today. I think we need to, my opinion is that we concentrate on airports where the longest waits are. We prioritize those. The large airports where there's a long wait, like 3 hours. I think we got to prioritize what we do like we do everything else. So.
Yeah, okay, honest answer. We'll prioritize it. We'll figure it out. I don't know the exact number, but we're going to go to airports where they need the most help. Dana, I would imagine you fly a lot. You might want to thank Tom Homan because it's your side that's causing the problem. A little bit more from CNN. It's like bashing your head in with a hammer, but here they are actually explaining that having ICE agents suddenly appear and work is fixing all of the lines, in this case in Atlanta.
Finally, we can take a deep breath here. The numbers have dropped off. The lines are getting shorter. I think the average wait time now is under 40 minutes. So if you have a flight to catch today, it's a good time to come to Hartsfield-Jackson International. Talking about those ICE agents, you can see a few behind me right there. And then I'm going to walk you this direction, and you can see some more of them gathered over here. This is what they've been doing for the most part today, is doing the patrols around the airport, talking and gathering.
Well, that's pretty good. ICE comes in when people are working, then things start moving along a little bit better. That's nice to see. But the Democrats are just insane. They're just insane, and they want you to pay for their sins. However, as you know, there is one sane Democrat. He is the senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, who one day, I guarantee you, before he's done, not only will be a Republican, but will wear a button-down shirt. And here he is questioning the Dems. Why are you defunding DHS while we're in the middle of a war and we've also had 4 Islamic terrorist attacks on our soil?
I've been consistently the only Democrat to vote against this shutdown. It's wrong. You know, you witnessed what happened in Michigan. That individual drove into the synagogue. He showed up to kill 150 toddlers. So why would you want to make America more unsecure in the middle of these kinds of attacks? And now, if you've seen any one of those disaster movies about a cyber attack, well, guess what? The cybersecurity agency is under DHS, and that's shut down right now. And now you will also see people, if you're flying, you're going to see long, long lines. And I am there all the time. I ask all of those TSA agents, hey, do you like getting paid? Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. People do like getting paid. If I stop paying you guys, would you keep showing up? No, wow, even you. Wow. I really thought you would still show up for a while, just for the all the Celsius that you're drinking. Yeah, terror attack in Michigan, terror attack in New York, terror attack in Austin. He points out the cyber division is shut down right now. The Democrats are creating the conditions for more violence and more just general pain for you because of what's happening at the airport. And he's the only guy speaking up against it. Here he is on the All In podcast talking about that the only unifying principle that the Democrats have is hatred of Trump.
Who do you think leads the Democratic Party today?
Oh, we don't have one. I think the TDS, I think that's the leader right now. You know, right now our party is governed by the TDS, and now it's made it virtually impossible without being punished as a Democrat to agree something's good, or I agree with the other side. And I would define that by epic fury. I am literally the only Democrat in America in Congress that I've come across that's saying, I think it's a great thing to break and destroy the Iranian regime.
So the Democrats, he's right. all that they are doing is being oppositional to everything, no matter how many young girls get killed at college by an illegal alien, no matter how long you have to wait at the airport, no matter whether you try to go out to a club in Austin and you get shot by an Islamist. The only thing unifying them is that they hate Trump. Here's one more from Fetterman illustrating just that.
You asked me earlier, what's the leader of the Democratic Party right now? I would say it's TDS. That's driving the conversation. If he supports, he could come out for ice cream and lazy Sundays and now suddenly Democrats would hate it. We would want to vote it down.
Man, I could go for an ice cream and lazy Sunday. That sounds pretty great to me. But he's right. He's right. And by the way, Trump understands this, and he's going to have to keep leveraging this idea. That's the what happened at the State of the Union. Stand up if you're for American citizens more than illegals. And he illustrated to the entire world that the Democrats are here for illegals more than for citizens, which is why not one Democrat, he just checked, in their last 20 tweets, one big-time Democrat has tweeted about that girl from Loyola. Because they don't care. They quite literally don't care. They care more about Quilmo Abrego Garcia, who beat his wife with a boot and was a human trafficker and an illegal and a member of a gang from El Salvador. They care more about him than the people that he harms. But he's also right that the Democrats have no leadership, and Schumer, poor schmuck Schumer, that's what we're going to call him for now, Chuck Schmuck Schumer. There's just, everyone hates him because he's not a radical ding-dong like the true AOC Ilhans, but he's just nothing. He's just absolutely nothing, who, as we've pointed out 20 years ago, was saying the exact same things on immigration that Donald Trump says now, which is exactly what Barack Obama used to do and everything else. Kristen Welker asks Murphy, this Connecticut Murphy, this guy is just, he's terrible. If you thought the other clip was bad, here's another one. Basically, who's your leader and what are you going to do? And Murphy just lays it out. Nobody knows.
And to the point, leadership is, of course, leading the charge here. And there's a lot of focus on Chuck Schumer right now. The Wall Street Journal reporting that there's growing frustration with Chuck Schumer, which spurs talk of replacing him. Senator, do you want to replace Leader Chuck Schumer?
Well, I think we are united right now as a caucus. There's always a lot of focus on Senator Schumer and Leader Jeffries. Those are very hard jobs, especially at a historic moment like this.
That's not a yes.
Well, no, we are united as a caucus right now. Let me just be clear about that. We are united in ending this war. We are united in reining in the lawlessness of ICE. And we're going to be united in winning the election this November.
All right, so the point is, Schumer, you're on borrowed time one way or another. Like, nobody likes you, and I guarantee you guys, mark my words, put a bookmark on this one. Whoever they bring in after Schumer will be worse than Schumer, right? To whatever degree he's holding the dam from them becoming an entire jihad party, you will see it will be worse after him. So how do we end this show? Obviously, the Democrats are nuts. Obviously, Trump's trying to do a lot of good things. There's podcast wars where Trump's being undermined by people on the right. Well, what I would say is that whatever happens in the future, the Republicans have a pretty deep bench. Whether in 28 it is Marco Rubio, whether it is J.D. Vance, whether it is Don Jr., or whoever, or Ted Cruz, or whoever, there are sensible people. There are people that have a certain set of values, and they might get some things wrong, but they're pretty decent. And one of them is Ron DeSantis, who has run this state just so unbelievably well, as you know. He went on Sean Hannity's new podcast, which I think I'm on in a couple of weeks, and Hannity asked him if he would consider running for president again, and kind of what happened last time.
Will you run for president again?
We'll see. I mean, I think that, in 24, like in Iowa, the people that voted for Trump, if he wasn't running, I would have gotten like 90% of those people. They were conservative voters, right? They didn't want the non-conservative. That they wanted me. And so, but the timing didn't work out, obviously, for that. So you just got to see what happens.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to get ahead on all of that, and we don't have to rehash the primary or anything else, and he was probably in a little bit too early, and I think he'd have to be a little more refined in a few ways of dealing with the media and things of that nature. But the point is, there are sensible people There are sensible people who care about America, who are doing good things, who have track records. The Democrats keep plucking people from obscurity. Even Mamdani, you have a state assemblyman who missed something like 80% of the votes, who's an absolute activist more than anything else, who's never run as much as a sneaker store, which is a perfectly honorable job, by the way, who then they say, okay, be the leader of the world's #1 city in the world, right? Like, and they say, go ahead and do that because you're good for the media, or that's what they've done with AOC or the rest of them. The Republicans will have an opportunity to showcase serious people, which is why this administration is so good. And that should be starkly obvious. And that's why we got a hell of a lot of work to do from now until November to make sure that the Democrats don't, I keep ending every show the same way, but that the Democrats do not win the midterms, because if they do, Trump, the experiment, this entire thing is basically over overnight. And if he wins, imagine what 2 years of Trump, where he knows he's not running for re-election and he can really go all in. He could fix more than I think we could possibly imagine. So that is where we are at. I'm going to call it at a 9-3 because of what happened earlier. Connor, happy birthday to you. Did you eat your little guacamole? I brought him a personal sized guacamole, which you did. It was pretty good, right? A little extra lime in there. There you go. All right, post-game show, 30 seconds, RubinReport.locals.com. See you tomorrow.